Hey guys, Bryan here from Liquid Concepts. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the top 5 things that you did not know about Hydrographics. So let's get started.
Perfect timing.
Let me answer this first. So let's go ahead and get started on number 1. So number 1 is going to be dipping is cheaper than painting. And so we get a lot of this whenever we are in our industry, and a lot of people think that it's super cheap because you take the part, you dip it in the water, and you hand it back to the customer. That's definitely not the case. Sometimes the dipping could be cheaper, it's possible. But for the most part, the dipping is almost always going to be actually more expensive than the painting itself, mainly because you have to think of it in the way of the dipping and how it works, because we have to shoot a primer, we have to shoot a base coat, we have to dip it, and we also have to do any touch-ups, and then of course clear coat it. So with all of those steps, compared to an automotive paint job, which is still primer, it's still base coat, it's still clear coat, there's almost always going to be extra steps involved whenever you're doing the hydrographics. So definitely don't be shocked whenever you get a quote back and possibly to paint a part may be $100, but to dip a part may be $150 or something like that. Now, of course, every shop charges everything differently, so definitely check with the local shop and see what they would charge for some items, because sometimes it may be cheaper, but definitely don't think that it's always going to be super cheap whenever you are getting just the hydrographics alone done on a part. So, number 2. We have customers that come up to us all the time and they ask us, I want you to dip, let's just say a bumper, right? I want you to dip it in a black, and we're like, we don't dip black. And they're like, no, we want it dipped. And we're like, we don't dip it, we can paint it black. No, I don't want it painted, I want it dipped. And so there's always a very big misnomer about that, because of course with the dipping there is no solid colors. And so the main thing is on the dipping you're always going to have a texture, a pattern, or something like that, like a camouflage, carbon fiber, wood grains, animal prints, any of those types of patterns that you're putting onto an object. But whenever you're wanting solid colors done, that's where it's going to be painted on instead of dipped. And so of course a lot of people get that confused or misinterpreted or something like that. So of course that is definitely one of the top 5 on the things that you probably did not know, is that the dipping does not have solid colors. It is just strictly for patterns, textures, and things like that. So number 3. OEM versus aftermarket. So of course we are an aftermarket shop. We do things very thoroughly, and of course we're almost always going to be way more expensive than what an OEM can do a part for. Now, the quality is always going to be a lot better from an aftermarket shop compared to an OEM. And the main reason is that we're going to be using a lot better quality materials, a lot more prep work, and of course we want the customer to come back because we want that job to hold up for years down the road. Now, in retrospect, an OEM, they're looking at the bottom line, and so of course a lot of people get a bad interpretation of the hydrographics that it's not a great coating, when in reality the manufacturer just chose to not do the proper prep work, or possibly not the best clear coat, or it faded or something like that. And so then of course it gives us, the aftermarket hydrographics people, a very bad name, because we are putting out a lot better quality materials, better materials that we're using, better paints, better primers, better clears, things like that, but yet we're also charging for that service compared to an OEM, which is doing it for pennies on the dollar, and they're doing mass quantities of everything and just sending it out the door just to make it look good so that way you can buy it. So of course number 3 is going to be that the OEM level of quality is going to be the same as an aftermarket level of quality. Normally that is not the case, the aftermarket is almost always going to be a lot better, a lot more attention to detail, and you're going to have a lot better coating that's going to last way longer than almost any OEM is going to give you. Number 4 is you can dip anything. Now, can you dip anything? Yes, you can. But is it going to last or is it going to stick? That's going to be the biggest problem that you're going to have. So a lot of people think that if you can take it and dunk it into the water, you can dip it. For the most part, that's probably true, but you also have to look at the coating in the entire coating by itself instead of just the dipping by itself, because the coating may not be able to stick to the part that you have. So like for instance, rubber or something like that, vinyl, those things are going to be really hard to get any type of coating to stick to them. So even though they can be dipped, it may be that you can't get any of your other materials to stick to that part to make it to where it's going to give you a long lasting coating that's going to hold up over time. Because of course for us as a hydrographic shop, it's one of those things where we always want to make sure that we give the customer the best coating possible, whether that be hydrographics or whether that be another coating. We always try to educate that customer. And so sometimes, yeah, could we do it? Yes, but is it going to last? And that's going to be the biggest thing. So can you dip almost anything? Yeah, we probably could, but the main question that you need to ask yourself is it going to last? And that's going to be something that you definitely have to discuss with the hydrographic shop that you're using. And of course, number 5, this is one of my biggest pet peeves that I see all over the internet. And of course, they have pretty much completely ruined our name, is the swirling. Everybody thinks that hydro dipping or hydro painting or whatever you want to call it is the same, or the same terminology, or like you'll even see people where they're taking, of course, tons of spray cans and they're spraying it on top of the water and they're dipping parts down in it. Is that dipping? Yeah, they're dipping it in it, but it is not hydro dipping. It is not. I don't know how many times it just blows my mind that people are like, oh, I'm hydro dipping, and you're like, no, you're dipping things in water with spray can. That's totally different. It doesn't work. That's not the same. What we do versus what they do, totally different. This is hydrographics. This is hydro dipping. This is water transfer printing. Spray cans with rattle cans and all of that, throwing them on top of the water, that's swirling. That's not the difference between, it's not. Now that we've got that figured out. So hydrographics versus swirling, 2 totally separate coatings, 2 totally separate things to do. Let's call it the right thing. It's swirling. It's not hydrographics. It's not water dipping. It's just, let's just try to get it right, please. All right, thank you. So of course, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. As always, if you haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you subscribe to our weekly tips and tricks on anything hydrographics related, as well as also to let me know if I may have missed something that you think should have been in the top 5 things. We'd also love to hear from you on anything else that you think should have been in there, or anything, I don't know where. Just somewhere. Just let us know anything. How about that? All right? Perfect. As always, we're going to have links in the description below for, of course, the website. And the website is going to have everything that you're going to need for the hydrographics, whether you need tanks, training, film, activator, of course, paints, all of that. It is all there on the website. So if you're looking at getting into hydrographics, water transfer printing, not swirling, then the website is definitely the way to go. Liquidconcepts.com, you can check it out. There's links in the description, so of course check that out. I'm Bryan from Liquid Concepts, and this is how we customize your world. We'll see you guys next time.